I'm busy here today with Mark Eaton. Mark, welcome to today's show.
Thanks, Alan. It's great to be with you today.
So, Mark, for the listeners, can you share about your background, a little bit about history of what you did during your career?
Well, yeah, Alan, I can. I'm a former NBA player. I played in the NBA for 12 years with the Utah Jazz, and from '82 to '94, and originally from Southern California. And since retiring from the NBA in '94, I've done a variety of things, and including running nonprofits, youth camps for at-risk kids, and been involved in the restaurant business, actually with a couple of guys from San Francisco. And about 10 or 12 years ago, I started to get a little more involved in business consulting and motivational speaking. I have a very unusual story of how I became an NBA player, going from an auto mechanic at age 21 to an NBA All-Star. And the lessons and the things I learned along the way, and the coaches and the people that came alongside of me, gave me some unique insights into the world of business. And I've utilized that experience to teach companies and individuals, organizations on how to create a winning team from kind of the inside out from my own unique perspective.
You know, we're also a personal recipient of your team building skills there, having recently had our organization listen to you. And Mark, when we look at the steps to building teams, you wrote a book called The 4 Commitments of a Winning Team. Can you walk us through just that overview of the process that you walk people through?
Yeah, I can. It starts with a commitment to the people around you, and that's how I became an NBA player. I had coaches that came alongside of me at critical junctures that showed me what I needed to do next, and so they through those experiences, I distilled it down to 4 unique little points, the 4 commitments of a winning team. And the first one is really about knowing your job. And I had an interaction one day at the men's gym at UCLA in the afternoon when I wasn't playing much and things weren't going very well. And a gentleman by the name of Wilt Chamberlain pulled me aside and gave me some very great advice about where my position was on the court, what I needed to do, what I wanted to focus on, and what I needed to let go of, and help me really dial in my position and what my unique strengths were out there on the basketball court. And so I call that knowing your job, focusing on that one thing you're excellent at. And we sometimes forget about that. We always think we need to fix our weaknesses. And what he showed me was how to take the strength I already had and leverage it even further to help my career. And so that's the first one, called knowing your job. The second one is about execution. And when I was at UCLA, I wasn't playing very much. My junior college coach told me, look, if you're not going to play in the games, you're still going to have to make the practices your games. You're still going to be the first guy there and the last to leave. You're going to have to continue to work out, because it's not about just this year and the fact you're not playing. This is a long-term process. And we're not going to get too wound up about the fact that you're not getting a lot of playing time this year, because we're shooting for the NBA. We're shooting for, a professional career. And so he challenged me to kind of get past that very disappointing year of my life and continue to work. And I did it. He gave me this game plan and I followed it. And so I call that doing what you've been asked to do. And I asked the question, are we clear what other people want from us? Do we really know what's expected of us, and do we ask? And I think sometimes in business, people have jobs, they have job descriptions, and they think they're doing the right thing, but they're afraid to go in and ask, like, is there anything else I should be doing? Anything else I should be more focused on? So that's called doing what you've been asked to do. Point number 3, I came to the Utah Jazz in Salt Lake City when they were a bad team in a bad market. Our games were showing tape delay at 11 o'clock at night. It was really a very difficult time for the NBA in the early 80s. And our coach, Frank Layden, who's from New York and had this kind of blue-collar work ethic and attitude about life. And he said, if you guys would just stop competing with each other out there on the court and start cooperating with each other a little bit, the individual accolades would show up. And we're kind of a group of cast-offs from other teams and players like myself that didn't have much experience. But he got us to start trusting each other a little bit and cooperating with each other a little bit. And the more we started passing the ball and trusting each other a little bit, or the wins started coming. And then, yes, the individual accolades kind of followed right after that. And so I call that making people look good. How focused are you in making the people you work with look good on a scale of 1 to 10? What could you do to improve that score? Is there somebody you need to acknowledge or check in with or buy a cup of coffee for? Making people look good. And then the last one is what I did well in the basketball court is I protected my teammates. My job was to stand in front of the basket and stop players from getting there. And the better I did my job, the better my teammates were because they could go out and try and steal the ball, knowing that I would get between their man and the basket if they failed. And I position this as the key to trust and the key to loyalty is really about having each other's backs because those guys knew they could count on me. And I think that's why I lasted in the NBA for 12 years. There were certainly better players that came along, but I was there to protect my teammates. And so commitment number 4 is about protecting other people. And I always ask the question, can you take a moment now and write down the names of 3 people you need to let know this week that you have their back? Because I think this is another missing link in the business world is that we expect people to do their jobs, but they don't really know that we're committed to them. And it doesn't mean you have to go out to dinner with them every night or anything like that. But you do need to let them know while you're at work that, hey, I've got your back. I'm here for you. And you can count on me. And I think that's a big missing link in the business world today. So the 4 commitments are knowing your job, doing that one thing you're excellent at, doing what you've been asked to do, making people look good, and protecting others. So those are the 4 commitments.
It's interesting with the rate of change that we have in society today in this COVID-19, how it's impacted what used to be versus what it is today versus what it's going to be. And we're getting into what we call the new normal. What advice would you have for organizations as they adjust into the new normal and look for how do we best build teams in a remote environment?
Well, I think that the new environment is really challenging for teams because you're not in the same room, you're not doing things together. And I think it puts a lot more pressure on the leaders to check in and make sure that everybody is in alignment and on the same page. And so, that protecting others concept that I just talked about and checking in with people and making sure they're okay, that's part of your job as a coach and part of your job as a leader right now. And there are some teams, there's some evidence that some teams work even better remotely than they were when they were all together, which is kind of an interesting phenomenon. But by and large, I think that people are scared right now. They're isolated. And while they might be putting on a good face when they're on the Zoom call in the morning, I think the leaders and coaches really need to take a few extra minutes and check in with everybody to help maintain that alignment and maintain that unity, because that's all you've got right now. Right? You're only as strong as your people. And so I think a coach's job and a leader's job is to double down on that and make sure that everybody is okay.
Mark, it's been a number of years since you've written your book and you've given a number of keynote speeches to organizations. So I want to take advantage of this learning curve because I'm sure every time you go through an organization is different. There's probably different perspectives gained. So now, knowing what you know now, are there things that you would also add to the book, the common mistakes that some organizations make in team building?
Yeah, I think that you really have to look and see if this person's going to be a good fit for your organization, if he or she fits the culture. I think that's something that sometimes gets overlooked. And then I also think that we've got to be really clear about our expectations. I think people really want to know, how do I win? And sometimes we give them jobs, we expect them to start performing, and nobody ever checks in to see if, number one, they're properly trained, if they have all the tools that they need, and number two, if that new hire is absolutely clear about what it takes to succeed, what it takes to win, and what the expectations are. And so we end up kind of in this kind of morass where the leaders up at the top are all saying we're doing this is the project we're working on, and the people below them aren't always clear about exactly what direction we're going, what are we doing. I'm actually working on a company right now that's been very fast growing, and they're having a difficult time keeping the people behind them up to speed. And part of the problem is that leaders themselves have 3 or 4 different ideas of what that job description needs to be for that person. And it's impossible. And, the frontline people, the managers, middle management, all that stuff, they don't have the same buy-in to the organization as the owners do, as the leaders do. And sometimes I think leaders forget that. I think they think that everybody's supposed to have the same passion and excitement about what they're doing as they do. And the bottom line is that people below them need the training and the assistance and the teamwork to kind of come up to speed and make sure that they're in alignment with what leadership wants. So I think those are the things that I would add if I went back in and did it again. And it's across the board. It's not any one in particular industry or anything. It's something everybody is challenged with, but you're really only as good as your team. And so your ability to take a step back sometimes and look at the training and the coaching that's being provided to the people in key positions, double checking that and making sure that they are on the same page is paramount. And so that communication thing, which of course never goes away, I think especially now in this remote work environment, everybody's got to double down on that and just and over communicate.
You hit on something very important, and I think that as organizations grow, you'll see that when they're small, they can be centralized, but the larger that they become, it goes to more of a decentralized mode. And how do you build an effective communication strategy within an organization? Because obviously, two people hear the same set of facts and can interpret them differently. But how do you ensure that you're getting measurable results out of that?
Well, it goes back to some of the stuff that I read back in the 80s, like remember Stephen Covey's book, Principle-Centered Leadership, and it looked at the results in the center of this wheel and then went backwards up to the mission statement, right? And then all along the way, you could see the silos or divisions that occurred where communication broke down. And I think the leaders that I've worked with have been the most effective are the ones that get out of their office and they go down to the front lines. They spend time with middle management. They wander around. They talk to people. They spend time with their VPs, help coaching them on how to coach their people, because it's just so easy to get all caught up in the structure of what the business is now, and you forget that it's driven by people. And so that's one thing I always encourage people to do. And it's no different than if you look at like Phil Jackson or one of those, one of the great coaches who would take time, and coaches I played with, worked for as well, who would take time to say, come on, let's go have a beer. Let's sit down. Let's talk about this. And, you don't need to carry the weight of the whole business on your shoulders, right? I don't need you to score 80 points a night. I need you to score 30 points a night and get 10 assists, right? And so I think that's the leadership just has to have their finger on the pulse of the people in the organization. And the only way they can do that is getting out and spending time with them.
I love that. Mark, in addition to doing your motivational coaching and team building in an organization, what are some of the other projects that you're involved with today?
Since COVID, I've shifted more to business consulting, and I've got a couple of clients I'm working with now on kind of longer term projects to help build their team culture. Because it was interesting playing in the NBA. It's just your job. You kind of do what you do. But afterwards, when I retired, I realized what a unique experience I had in terms of that our results were expected daily. Right? If you lose 3 games in a row, you could be living in a new city next week, right? And so there wasn't any time to get too involved in personal drama. Like you had to just sit down and figure stuff out right now. And sometimes that meant closing the locker room door and kicking all the coaches out and working it out. But we weren't going to wait till the next quarterly retreat to address it or the next board meeting. It was like you had to figure it out today. And that perspective has given me some unique insights into the business world, because everybody in business uses the terminology, we're a team, we're a team, we're a team. But I think that where I come from and anybody else that's played professional sports, we have a kind of a different perspective on that because we were forced to make it work on a daily basis, and we had to learn how to do that. And so that perspective I found is given me kind of a unique filter to look at the world of business from.
Excellent. Final question for you, Mark, and I really appreciate you being with us here today.
Sure.
When everything is said and done, what gives you the greatest joy in life?
What gives me the greatest joy in life is helping people and helping them figure out stuff and watching the light bulb go off when it does come together. I've had great coaches in my life, and a couple of them have passed away, and I've kind of felt recently like it's my opportunity now and to kind of take on coaching in a little bit bigger way, working with other people. And so I think being able to come alongside of somebody and look at the horizon together and share a common goal and watch that person light up when they see for themselves where it is that they're going and what they could do. That's like the greatest gift ever.
Thank you. And I'll add this testimonial that we're Facebook friends, and I'll often see your posts about coaches and individuals that have given you a lot of impact to your life and mentoring throughout the years. And I really appreciate the way that you're recognizing those individuals who have helped you, but likewise, you're helping several companies and several organizations. So for the listeners on this on podcast, we will include your contact information. Is it okay if you prefer to be contacted through email?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Okay.
Or give me a call.
Very good. Okay, so we'll include that up here for listeners looking out to engaging for team building skills. And I'll tell you, it's his presentation is absolutely excellent. Mark, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks, Alan. My pleasure.